But I guess at this point, let's just go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here. I am here with Ryan, better known as Sable IVGC, or one of the finalists for the Victor Road World Cup. Congratulations, my friend.
Well, thank you, thank you. Honestly, though, that's all Canada. Canada, that whole community right now is absolute full of gamers. We're working so hard. I'm just honestly happy to be part of the team.
Man, it's insane. Like I know you guys have a couple of pretty strong players. I don't know that anyone in their predictions that Canada Thailand is the that's the finals for sure. So
Uh, I don't think I had Canada Thailand as a prediction,
very cool,
but
man.
happy to be there for sure.
Very cool, very cool. Congratulations, my friend. Looking forward to
Thank you.
watching. One of the interesting fun facts about Ryan here is that actually one of the managers of his team is the manager of Team Thailand. So this week, it's kind of interesting in chat. So we'll see how that's gonna be.
Playing My Stars, who's a member of
Oh,
the
you're actually
community
playing
as
My
well.
Stars. Oh shit, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So
Well, very cool, very
very
cool,
good week.
very cool. So this week we're gonna do something a little bit interesting. So we're gonna start by looking at the Pokemon starts of week one, and then we're gonna look at week two and compare the difference. We're gonna do that every week and just see how, because we're effectively creating a meta for this. Like people have played this format, but I don't know that there's been enough organized play with people tracking stats. Call it an tournament play. So I think we're effectively creating a meta. So I think it's cool to see the meta evolve and actually kind of track the stats that way. Then we're going to talk about each individual matchup and how the standings are in relationship to what's going on, and then we're going to talk a little bit about next week. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the stats of last week. Couple of key highlights. Instant Rila Urshifu, I think that's what everybody expected. Then we have a couple of familiar faces, a few ones that maybe jumped out at me. Sylvian at number 9 definitely jumped out. Cresselia at 18. Still with having the other Urshifu kind of jumped out at me. So I was very much looking forward to seeing how this was going to change in the following week. When we go to next week, Instant dropped to third in usage, which really called my attention.
I
Uh,
don't think I've ever seen Instant at third in usage, like
ever,
ever.
ever. I've seen it at 2, I think. Never at 1, or never at 3. Sorry.
Never below that for the most part. Yeah.
Another thing that really called my attention: P2 was in the top 20. It's out. Sylvian was number 9. It's a 19. Reggie Eleki is maintaining a firm under 40% win rate. Landorus under 30% win rate. Indidi, Stagataka, Entei, very low. Spectre, 12.5% with an 83% win rate. So, a couple of things that jumped my attention. Nihilego, I really thought was one of the stronger months in the format. I think people realized that in the second week. And not only did it climb to number 4, but it also has a nearly 80% win rate. Which I
Yeah.
don't typically see those, but at that level of usage, it calls attention for sure.
For sure. I think Nihiligo is just one of those mons that it's going to be a threat. Realistically, you can put it on any team you want, and it's going to be a threat. But Nihiligo
Mhm.
works best when it's actually on a well-functioning team because you're
Mhm.
able to support it so well, right? You can pivot into instants for fake out, intimidate. You can pivot into Rillaboom, pick off the water Urshifu, right? Stuff like that supports it so well. And since the meta is basically throw instant, throw your Urshifu, throw your Rillabooms, all that is just so common. And then you slap a Nihiligo on there, it's a perfect core of 4, and it's just
For sure.
as seen here, destruction.
So to your point, it actually made 2 of the top 10 pairs this week. Number 4 with Rillaboom and number 8 with Urshifu. To your point, I do suspect that a lot of teams are building around those 4. So that was definitely something interesting. Another cool thing to me is at number 10, people are still using Rila Tabufini with the dual terrain. I personally like running that. I think it's a really good way to guarantee that you have terrain It's a really good way to mess up either Finny or Rillaboom in the mirror if you play that correctly. But what caught the most my attention is Rillaboom Urshifu passed Relanson. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to think there. I don't know why are we seeing that decline in usage. Maybe it's in Danny Lego. Maybe that's the reason why.
I think it's the combination of Nihilego and Urshifu itself, because Rillaboom has normally the Assault Vest, so unless that Nihilego is boosted up, it's not going to take that one-hit knockout. Whereas it's picking up the instants every time. It's picking up, right, and the Urshifu is also picking up the instant more often than not. It's the threat you have to work around, so instant naturally should fall there, right? So that I think just puts the Rillaboom Urshifu a little bit higher than the Urshifu instant. But
So do you think people are going to be running Charty instant now?
I want to say you're going to see it, but I don't think it's super common. Like, it's one of those ones where you could tech a Charty Berry, but it's useless the moment you're not playing Nihilego, right? Because instant is so naturally bulky.
Well, that was the
So you
argument
don't
for the
necessarily
Shuka
need-
Berry, and that was the argument for the goggles. People were still running it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't think it's worth it unless your team is like super weak or you have a super specific issue against one team. Like back, don't get me wrong, I've been seeing a lot of berries on instant because back, I think it was, I want to say like Series 10, I actually ran Pasho Berry instant just for strictly the Kyogre matchup because I needed to bring instant versus Ogre. But I also needed to be alive, so we ran Pasho. But I don't know if that's necessarily a point in the meta where you need that right now, where you can still kind of maybe adjust your supporting cast of instant, which normally instant is the supporting cast. But
So I
I
actually
guess-
ran Pasho Berry early Series 10, and I had Snarl on instant. So in a lot of teams where Kyogre wasn't running Tailwind, I was running Tailwind myself with a Pasho instant and snarling Kyogre, tanking it, and then parting shotting it into a Rillaboom.
yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
like, it was not good. I'm gonna be very clear. It was not
No, of
good,
course.
but
But it
the
served a
premise
specific
was
point.
that. Right.
Right, it served a specific point, and that's where I think the Charty Berry could be useful, because it is going to serve that point.
Right.
The only problem I find with that is, like I said, is it enough of a point, or can you just maybe start teching a steel type? Because I think you're going to see on this chart, there's not very many steel types here. I think it's just Stack Attack and Heatran this week, up there in the top 20. And I think you're going to start seeing some more steel types start creeping into this format just to strictly deal with those Nihilegos, because right now it's kind of just dominating the format. It beats the Finny, it packs 75% damage with a Meteor Beam into any of the Urshifus, kills the instant, beats the Rillaboom if you get the boost up first. I guess Heatran and Amoonguss kind of sort of wall it, but Amoonguss walls it, but Nihilego gets through that. And then you kill Lando Eye. Aleki doesn't do too much. You do about 70 to Celesteela. You kill Clefairy, which is another mod I do want to point out in a minute. I guess Dragapult's a bit of a concern, but like basically my point here is it's beating over half of these top used mods, and something like that's going to need to be teched for moving forward in this format.
So I did a little bit of light Heatran testing, and it just felt so good. Like, I'm not playing hard this format. I'm a little burnt out from playing in Europe a few months ago and then the World Cup and such. So I'm taking it light, but so I did like a Heatran team, and it just felt so strong. Now, I'm going to tell you something that might sound a little heretic, but I was running it with Flame Body.
No, I like that. I like that. I've thought about it, but I can't justify it, you know?
I'm going to
I
tell you
like
how
it.
you justify it. It's called Urshifu.
Yeah, you live the Urshifu Surging Strikes and you have 3 chances to burn it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's fine. I'm sure it's fun, but like, I don't know. I just feel like you get more value the other way, but I guess on the right
Potentially,
team
yeah.
it could definitely work.
I mean, so I did take a fire move, and I took a lot of damage, and then it gave me pause. But I'm like, I can see how like you make it work, but you need to know that you're about to take damage from a fire move, right? We also have a good insight here from Nate that says that the lack of Kartana is crazy. I agree.
I agree.
I agree. So I made, and I think Nate has actually seen this team, where I had like a Como Cortana team, and Nihilego as well were on that team. And basically, my argument was like, fuck the fairies. I'm straight up going to like bring whatever fairies you want. I'm literally just gonna lead with this too. You bring whatever fairy you want, and you're screwed, right? Like lead Urshifu plus fairy, Tapu Fini, whatever that is. Like you are in a very bad spot against this too. Um,
I yeah, I'd be interested in going back to sort of a 2017 core here. I mean, it used to be called. I mean, wait, Nihiligo was 2017, right? Yes, I believe so. Yes.
yeah, it's
Um,
an ultra easier.
and it used to be called like the AFK core, which was the Arcanine, Tapu Fini, Kartana, and a lot of people threw Nihiligo on there too, right? So now I'm wondering if you can go something along the lines of Nihiligo, Incineroar, Kartana,
Yeah.
Incineroar over that Arcanine, and all of a sudden,
hmm
that's another solid core. Like, what breaks that?
Yeah, exactly. So another good insight from Nostalgia's Great, where he says that Spagmug isn't really comparable to Restricted or Dynamax, because of the high damage that those produce. So Instinct is more of a glue with Parting Shot. Spot on. I mean, that's why you were using it in the old series, but you were seeing those with Assault Vest because it didn't have Parting Shot. Which is, I think, what kind of finished breaking Incineroar. I think it was already slightly broken with Parting Shot with a U-turn, and then they got the great idea to give it U-turn. And yes, Evan confirms that it's 2017 with AFK.
That's what I thought.
So I definitely hear. I mean, I see a couple of things that are interesting. I am very surprised and almost concerned that Komodo and Dragonite are not higher. You can tell me whatever you want about the fairies. This were very strong man, and people are missing out. I'm telling you, these are some ones you guys need to build their own. There's a couple of matches that had them. These guys need to be higher, man. These are very, very strong.
I think what's keeping them back right now, though, is the lack of, like you said, the lack of an actual meta.
Yeah.
Right? Like, a lot of those things are very, very good, but it's tough to build because a lot of them counter, like the Dragonite, right? Like, yeah, it breaks the most parts, but you don't really know what else you need to tech it for. And that kind of is holding it back. But I do think it has a lot of underusing potential.
For sure. Nostalgia also talked about Ban, which was Bulo, Arcanine, and Nihiligo. And he says that he or she or they. I'm bad at this whole pronoun things. I'm still getting used to this. I'm a foreign language speaker, so I'm still learning this. So it can just be Rilla, Instant, and Nihiligo. So potentially, yeah. Potentially, definitely.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. The old band core was always fun. So definitely
Yeah, for
interested
sure.
to see if updated version. I was actually on stream on Saturday, and I was testing Japanese Sand, just because I don't think it's very good, but like I wanted to see if we could make it work. So it was fun to go back to.
For sure. I guess the last comment on this slide, looking at the matches at a high level. So we got a win on the Heat, a strong win, 6-2. The Sun still strikes at 2-0 right now, 5-3 against the
They're doing
Thunders.
well.
The Castelia Coppers, and I forget what the name of this team
That's
is.
the Torkold, right?
Yeah, that's the
The
Torgles. It's the Torgles, but the whole Celtics one is super good. That was a tie. And then your team, the Lunala Dream Eaters,
Dream Eater.
actually pulled away with a 5-3. So very cool,
Yeah,
very
big
exciting
big
week. Very exciting week. So I guess let's go ahead and hop on the individual matches. These matches, I'm going to tell you something that really caught my attention on this one, and it's Popopo with that Nidoking. So,
Yeah, Nidoking is very cool.
so I tested Nidoking extensively in Series 10 early format, and I simply couldn't justify it over Lando Eye. And part of the reason for that is, and I think to the point from somebody earlier in the chat, there was just so much damage and so much bulk that Nidoking couldn't do anything. Nidoking has an impressive move pool, and
It
it's
does.
someone that and Nidoqueen as well. Nidoqueen is a little bit bulkier, and Nidoking's a little bit stronger. If you actually go back and take a look at a little bit of what Nidoking can do, I think you might be a little impressed. It's a good one, and it's something that people should definitely look into.
I agree. I think the big thing here, though, is a lot of the format right now is if you're gonna run a ground type, why not just Lando I, right? And I do think there's a lot of diversity.
So
Right,
so
with
here's
the
the
ground
thing,
type.
Lando has a 21% usage, has a 30% win rate. So
Right, and I think that goes with everybody just kind of using it and people just having the answers to it, right? Like, you saw the Nihiligo doing well, you saw the Urshifu Water doing well, you tip it enough, Grassy Glide puts 60% up onto it, right? So, there's a lot of counters to it, and there's a lot of answers to ground types in the format, which kind of holding them back, but I do think there's a lot of diversity and options if you can support them well.
for sure, for sure. Um, Another thing that caught my attention is Kuaru with the how do you call this water fire thing? Um, I forget the name. You know what I'm talking about. This thing,
Volcanion.
Volcanium. That caught my attention when the format started. I also did some testing with it, and I saw the potential, but I feel like in a Dynamax format, having a mon that you want to Dynamax that doesn't have Airstream or Trick Room, it's kind of hard to justify it as your main mon, you know?
Yeah, I agree, but I think it has potential, right? It's one of the only mons that can realistically resist both of Zacian's main stab and not be hit super effective by the covered sacred sword, right? So it has potential in that regard of just kind of beating up on the Zacians. That is until they run wild charge, but
that's what I was gonna say. Like my argument is, if this becomes strong enough, you're gonna start finding helping hand wild charges.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to look at Kyogre, right? Does Kyogre really run Thunders? I think it should in this format, but hey, you catch the Kyogre, it doesn't have Thunder. Now you're walling an entire core in itself of Zacian and Kyogre, and Volcanian's just sitting there. And I think on a team like this, you're getting Trick Room up, you're getting Speed up. I think it's honestly, it's a niche pick, but I do think it has potential.
The other cool thing about this one is that it had the Alolan Executor.
Yeah.
Really interesting alternative trigger user. I mean, they won 2-0. Very, very interesting pick there. So, not sure anything specific here. I mean, there were a couple of 2-1s. I think this game could have potentially gotten tied. Could have gone the other way pretty easily. So, I mean, there were a couple of 2-0s. There was one, I mean, Z on the losing team still got a 2-0. Strong team there with that core Nihiligo, Urshifu, and Rillaboom. Not instant, it had an Entei instead.
Yep.
So kind of interesting.
Clefairy there too. I think it's really, really cool. Like, Clefairy to me is one of those Pokemon that's going to be in this format, and I think right now a lot of people are sleeping on because it just does such a good job of keeping your partners healthy.
Yep.
And when it comes to something frail like the Nihiligo, even the Urshifu, right? Especially when you have like the Grassy Glides going into it, Urshifu doesn't want to take that. But now you have a Friend Guard. You probably live a Grassy Glide with a Friend Guard up, and you don't even need to follow me, right? So that already puts on so much pressure. Like, just Clefairy puts on pressure without putting on pressure, and I like those types of mons, like Clefairy, Amoonguss. They put pressure on without actually applying any sort of pressure, and it forces opponent to play a certain way.
So another thing that caught my attention here is that team that Tabu used, Tabu won. That is, I want to say, the team with the highest usage in the league, and it has an extremely high win rate as well. I think it's only lost one time, and it's been 4, 5, or 6 uses for the team.
It's a really solid team.
It's a very, very well built team. I'm not sure who gets the credit for it, but very well built team.
I believe it's MoMA and Diney. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's who it is or who they are.
Okay, very cool. Another quick thing that caught my attention here is 3 Yveltals. I think Yveltal is one of the best ones in Series 13. So,
agreed.
Kind of a cool thing there. Okay. Moving on.
For me, like Yveltal, it's very similar to a lot of the things, like even Kyurem and Zekrom, right? When you only have 2 restricted slots, it's tough to justify these types of Pokemon. Because Yveltal, it wants to be that support restricted, right? Now that there's no slots or anything, no restrictions, so to speak, it's, hey, throw a Veltal on the team. It's a fantastic support mod. Dish out offense to a lot of things, and you're not wasting a restricted slot on it. It deserves to be on pretty much every team, in my opinion. It's just
And no
that good.
Sarnias. No
Don't
Cern.
remind me. I miss
No,
I miss my dear.
no Cern. Very good. Okay, let's go to the next one. So, Sunsteel Strikers against the Tokyo Thunders. Again, it was a very, very close match. Again, another Nido Queen. Is that what, sorry?
Is that a scissor for Syntax?
Where's that? Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is a scissor.
Yo.
That's a very interesting team. Very interesting take on Rain as well. It was also a weather war because the opposing team had an Alola and Ninetales. I thought about Scissor in the meta and I haven't quite figured out where it fits. I certainly think it would be in a Rain team. I am a fan of Pelipper in the meta. There's a couple of random moves that you want Wide Guard on. There's the potential for Tailwind, Scald. It gets Hurricane. It doesn't get Helping Hand. That's kind of what bothers me. But there's a couple of good, solid grass types. Amogus is not running Kova Berry, so I like the Pelipper pick. I like the Serena to protect that Barraskewda. So we have a couple of comments here. So Scissor and Rain is somewhat a common team on ladder. Okay, was not aware of that.
Ladder? I wouldn't know, but it's actually pretty cool to hear. I like seeing Scissor, one of my favorite Pokemon, to be honest.
So Caesar's cool. So Nostalgia also had an interesting comment that when it doesn't take a restricted slot, it's actually okay being a glorified Mandibus on the Yveltal. So that's gonna I would say that's a valid take.
That's exactly it, though. That's exactly what I was trying to say, right? Like, it wants to be that bulky support that can do damage when it needs to and just set up support the rest of the team, and it does exactly that.
Yeah, for sure. I like the Drifloon pick. I see 2 Komodos, 2 wins. I know I'm a broken record. You guys are missing out. That thing is so strong. It's super strong.
Very good. It is very good. I think. Go ahead.
No. So, like, for example, if you look at the Scarlet Borgie match, right? So, you get rid of Tabulele. How do you kill it?
Win.
How do you kill it?
Skamoa just wins. And that, I think, is something we're going to see a lot more of in the format. Not necessarily Komodo, but Komodos, Turtonators, Registeals, because a lot of that playstyle right now is you can force people, especially because with Urshifu they can't protect, right? So you force people to play a certain way, get rid of the threat to your big game end game setup, start getting set up, and they can't beat you, right? Like you said with Komodo, you get rid of the Lele on that this specific instance, get rid of Lele, game over.
In the other matchup, you get rid of Spectre or Finny, you win.
And even honestly, Spectre is not that bad for it, right?
As long as you damage it so that you endgame it and you have more HP, you win, right?
Yeah, exactly it, right? Like, it's one of those things where there's so many opportunities for you to get that defensive setup going, where it's like, okay, do this, and now you can't kill me. You know, it's one of the main reasons I like Turtonator as well, just because you can't get crit. Right, so once you're set up, they're not breaking that 100% of the time. Like, the good news with Komodo is you resist the Surging Strikes and the Wicked Blow, so it really doesn't hurt that badly. Like, it's still good in that regards, but like the Registeel, I think that's where it kind of lacks in the end game setup mod, because you still get crit. The Lando is special; it just kind of rips through you anyways, right? But the Komodo not being able to being able to resist, and then Turtonator not getting crit just really shuts down a lot of the Urshifus.
I also see 2 Driflims here. Interesting pick. I used Driflim in Series 10 because we were like in the second round of the World Cup and we were already out. We were like 0-7 against Italy. And I was gonna bring Shiftry and Scarf Ninetales with Driflim and I forget who my terrain setter was. I had terrain. I can't remember what the terrain setter was. But I was gonna bring that because I had calculated that like modest Scarf Ninetales would one shot Station with a Weather Ball or something like that. It was something like that. I can't remember what the whole thing was. And if it was super bulky, Shiftry had Heat Wave, so I could double Heat Wave, and I was faster than it in both ways. But I ended up bringing Venusaur, and I brought Driflim, and I had Destiny Bond on it. So he brought Cali Shadow, and turn 1, I just went like Destiny Bond. I didn't pick it up. He didn't attack it. I think he switched.
Yeah.
But turn 1, I was like, fuck this, and I'm just gonna Destiny Bond it.
Yep. But Drift Lele, it's nothing new. It's an older core, right, that people are trying to bring back. And I know Bats in the comments saying it does nothing, right? And
Bats comment. Driflim, 2 Driflims, they both lost. It's a shit one that does nothing.
Okay, so hear me out. And
I lost 2, by the way,
opinion,
the Driflim.
In my opinion, Driflim and Terrain Setter has potential. I just think it's too early to try and force into the game right now. Because Driflim has so much potential. Lele has a little bit of potential right now as well. But like, what you need to do with this core is you need to use it to beat specific things. Like, I can bring a Driflim in. Really, what am I calcing for at this point? Right? Like, Driflim Lele is a core that does really, really well when you have specific things you want to beat with it. Right? Right now, everybody's throwing Driflim, Tapu Lele. The Lele right now is specced probably 252, 252. But it can be so much more than that. Right? You don't know what you need Lele to survive. You don't know what you need Driflim that live outpaced right now.
Surging Strikes so with a Choice Band, for example.
Yeah. Yes, but like, that's only one small thing that just is very generalized, right? Mm-hmm. You're not using this to counter like 3 or 4 different cores right now, which I think it has potential to do in the future, right? As the format starts settling, you're going to see these are the 4 moves you're going to want on your Drifloom. Because right now, it's got Strength Staff, Will-O-Wisp, Baton Pass, Minimize, if you really want to be cheeky. Shadow Ball, Tailwind, Acrobatics. I can go all day and list moves.
I'm a fan of Acrobatics on it.
I think it has a lot of potential. And it's just something that needs to settle in. I think the format needs to settle in before it can actually be used fully effectively.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's a good take. I think I'm a fan of the Acrobatics build because all of a sudden you're stuck in front of an Urshifu Rillaboom. What do you do with it? You could potentially argue that you're stuck in front of an Instant, but if you have Shadow Ball, you're also stuck in front of Instant. Yeah, so Evans reminded me, so it was Cerny, DD, Ninetales, Venusaur. It wasn't Mimikyu, it was a Sumaril. They had a wrong thing on it. So so the premise was that Shiftry was horrible, but it could one-shot Cali Shadow, Kyogre. I had 4 attacks on it. I could one-shot Kyogre, Groudon, Cali Shadow, and I could Heat Wave because I was faster with both, because I was Scarf Ninetales. So I could one-shot Station too, and those were the 4 months that were used in the meta. So I was like I could actually, I think Heat Wave also one-shot it, two-shot it, Cali before they set Trick Room. So I think that's what the premise was. I can't remember, this was so long ago. It was still a bad team, and I brought it into I'm like, listen, like, the team fundamentally works, but let's stand clear that it's a troll.
Yeah, it's not good, yeah.
Like, it's not good. This is obviously meant to be a troll.
Yeah, but back over here on the board, we were just talking in the last match how Veltal was so good in Series 13, and I'm looking at the 2 matches here for Series 13, and I'm not seeing an Veltal.
That caught my attention. I see Kyurem on Gahaku's team. I like
Once again, Wondermon, I think, is good in Series 13.
If you look at Kyurem on paper, Kyurem feels like it one-shots basically every mon in the meta. Like if you play it correctly, it can one shot everything, but then you actually use it and it's not good. And I'm gonna tell you the reason why. Because you're not putting airstream on it. I think it learns fly, but you're not giving it fly because you're removing protect. So you run it with a Whimsicott. I mean Gahaka won. Obviously they played it correctly, but it's just kind of a heartbreak.
It,
Two
it is a
Charizards.
heartbreak, but it has the potential, like you said, to just run over opponents, right? I think it's actually one of those things you only bring to one game. So it's one of those ones I think you leave on the bench for like games 1 and game 2 maybe, and then you see how your opponent's playing. If they look like they didn't bring an answer to it because, oh, he's not bringing Kyurem, it's just sitting there. All of a sudden you walk in with Kyurem, boom, 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 3 KOs, they lose. Like,
So
I think it's how you go about playing it.
well, one of the things that I did in Series 12, and again, it wasn't good, but it was good like on ladder because people didn't know how to play against it. Like I paired it with Charizard, Whimsicott, and Groudon. So basically, Groudon and Kyurem basically, fixed each other's problems, so to speak, and instant and then Tailwind. So, and when all of those things failed, Charizard mode. So that was kind of the logic there.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. But I see Lunala though on
On art card
I
scene.
can't read the name though from
Art
back here.
card.
Is that
Art card.
Arkar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I see the Lunala there on Arkar's end, and I think it's a really cool pick because we're saying there's a lot of Yveltals, we're saying there's a lot of Cali Shadows, right? So it's interesting to see, but I do think it has potential as well. It's one of the cooler ways to set Trick Room up in Series 13. I don't know, I've always liked Lunala, I've just never been good at using it, so it's always fun to
Same.
see.
Same. I'm really bad at using it, but I see the clear potential. I'm just not good at using it. It's the way that Paul Reese has explained it to me. It's like it's one of those months that I absolutely hate to use, but I hate playing against it.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Yeah.
Here, let's go to the next match. So this one was a tie. A lot of sun. Again,
A lot of
another.
fun.
So Owa brought a similar Komodo team, lost against that Layla team. Sol Galio on the Raikou versus Storviv match. That was kind of an interesting one. Then a Marsh
And
Shadow
a
as well,
Marshadow.
and a Marsh Shadow as well. How do you play Marsh Shadow in a Dynamax format?
Okay, so here's the thing. Spectral Thief is kind of a really cool move. I tried to run it. I threw some calcs in because I'm like, okay, you run Focus Sash so you're not dying.
Right.
You Spectral Thief away the Zacian's boost, so it's like technically having an Intimidate, and a lot of Zacians like going Adamant. So you're going to actually outpace that. You're going to steal their attack stat. You're going to go for the Spectral Thief. Unfortunately, it doesn't take the knockout, but
Right.
you're doing 80% to
Right.
Zacian, and anytime you
Does it
away
take the
attack,
boost
then
before the attack or after the attack?
you get the boost before you attack.
Okay.
So you take the +1 and then you're launching a +1 Spectral Thief. So it's, in theory, if it could pick up the knockout, I think it would see a lot more usage. But I think that's why we don't see it, because it's not taking that knockout on the bulkier Zacians.
Right.
In theory, it does enough. It's just, I don't know if it really excels in the format, right? I think it's just they're using it because they want to use a mythical, right? But I do think there's better fillers for it.
Agreed. Another pick that I see here, and it actually lost, is the Zapdos. I'm a little surprised that Zapdos is not higher in usage. I would have thought that a Rocky Helmet Zapdos would be an excellent pick in the meta, especially with all the Rillabooms and Urshifus coming in.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit surprised that Rocky Helmet Zapdos is not a higher pick. It actually lost the pick. So I don't know. That was kind of interesting.
I agree with you on this, and I know this is going to start sounding like a broken record, but once again, I'm going to say Rocky Helmet Zapdos is one of those mons that needs the format a little more developed, right? And like I said, it's going to start sounding like I have these like cop-out answers, but in all seriousness, it's not one of those mons you bring early format, right? Like, yeah, you're going to get some wins because, in theory, Urshifu hits you 3 times, you get the Rocky Helmet Chip, you get the static potential. Rillaboom can't touch you at all, you get the static potential, Rocky Helmet Chip. You probably want endgame Instant if you play it properly, but like, it's really, really tough to justify because it's what are you slapping on your team instead of right now, right? Without really
Right.
knowing how well it's going to do. I think you're going to see a little bit more of it, but I think right now it's a little lackluster, personally.
So a note on that is that Reggie Aleki has a very high usage, and he has a very low win rate. So I'm not. I mean, I do math for a living, so I understand that the statistics are skewed due to the smaller sample size. And obviously you play against each other, so a mon with high usage can never be like extremely high win rate, obviously, just
Yeah,
because of the way the math works out. So I get it, but having a
unless you're not illegal for whatever reason.
well, but the thing is, what that means is that there's not a lot of Nihiligo mirrors. You see one
Yeah.
in this matchup, but if you
Yeah,
go back
of
to the
course.
previous matches, it's not being
Yeah.
played in mirrors. So that is the
Agreed.
reason why why it has that high win rate, and that's why it called my attention. It's like people are bringing it, and they're not playing mirrors against it, other than like the one time.
Yeah.
So one of the losses was actually a mirror. So it should technically be a
One of
higher
the
percent.
losses was one of the reasons it won.
Right. Right. Another interesting thing here is I see 3 Sylvians and I see 2 wins.
All right, I like Sylvia.
Sylvian is a mon that I have mixed feelings on. I think Sylvian is a mon that if you play correctly is unremovable. It plays in a similar way to Fini, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
So it's a good mon, and I think it's strong. I just don't feel that it is as strong as Finny. Again, they do play slightly different. They have slightly different weaknesses. Um, but I just feel like. I mean, I would assume does a Surging Strike pick it up without a choice band?
Uh, no, I'm gonna say no because I think a lot of the Sylvians right now are built very defensive with that in mind, right?
Okay.
Because you don't bring Sylveon into a game against Urshifu, which is exactly where you want to bring it,
Right.
and you're just gonna drop.
And
two
then
Fusion
and then you
Strikes, right?
take
You build
yeah,
it
that
with that in mind, right? So
right.
you're not dropping that. So
No, I mean that makes sense. Now the question is, does it drop to a choice band? And maybe that's a whole separate argument. But I don't know.
you
I
prep
just
for
feel
that,
like
right?
I just don't play Sylveon enough to like fully understand the like I know how it plays. I just don't know the defensive calcs for it.
Yeah,
I typically just stand like a Kartana in front of it. Uh, so that's why I don't worry
just
too
threw
much.
myself steal it and call it the day, you know?
Right. That's my logic. I just stand a Kartana in front of it, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah.
We see your Heatran here. That we were talking about Heatran earlier. Heatran wins. Galarian Subdos on Tega's team is another one where so I see 2 actually. I would assume that they, that this guy's prepped a little together. The one like let's use Battle Room team.
I was just about to say that is the
Yeah.
battle room team.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is it not right? It is.
Yeah, I don't think that had Subdos originally.
No, I think. Well, it might have. I'm not sure.
I believe that it wasn't Subdos. If it was, my memory's just hazy. But I am actually a fan of Subdos. You have Ensign. Yeah, so it was Lando Eye original is what
Yeah,
Evan's saying. It's like I like the adaptation to it. I mean, Ensign was super high usage. It dropped, but what climbed was Real Woman Urshifu, which also got one-shotted by it. So,
Yeah.
I also think there's a couple of ways to play it. I mean, a thing that a lot of people are doing to counter this team is that they're spamming Snarl against it. All of a sudden, you just bring in, Subdos and you're +2, not even +1 anymore because it's not because you're dropping the special attack. So I like the adaptation. One of them won, the other one lost. One lost to Calvonix was obviously a strong pick. Tehran lost this matchup. It did feel like a weird matchup for him. It certainly felt like Taiga had a stronger MU to play against Tehran's team. So
I'm inclined to agree there. It's one of those ones where Tehran wants to do so many things against the team, but in reality, only one or two certain lines look like they're going to work into a team like that, right? Because you have to be careful of so much when you go up against a team like that.
mhm,
And I think that's probably where Tekka takes that advantage in the matchup.
for sure, for sure. No, good take. And then going back to like the Series 13 matches. So two trick rooms, two
We
different
got our boy
takes.
Aveltal back.
Yeah, so now we have Yveltal's back. We have 3 out of the 4, which was the same thing as the first one. It was like 3 out of the 4.
Yeah.
I think I feel like Marshadow doesn't want to play Dynamax. I think it's very.
It doesn't, but
It's kind of like Seraora, right? Like I think there was one Seraora bring in your matchup. Seraora feels like in that format, but without Dynamax, it would be strong because it's a fast fake out and volt switch and whatnot. But I don't know. So Raiko's team. So Raiko's a good friend of mine. It's a very weirdly designed team. With the Solgaleo, like the couple of shared weaknesses, it on paper you could make the argument that Torviv had a slightly better matchup, but then you realize that whatever Raiko or whatever Torviv was trying to do, you could set weather for the Groudon and mess up Groudon and Charizard. You realize that and I haven't watched this match, so I cannot tell you the items. Maybe if that Solgaleo was a Soldvest, all of a sudden is tanking a move from Kelly Shadow, and it's not quite as worried. Like, there's a couple of things that you could definitely do there, so I can see how Riker ran away with it. But certainly interesting, because I would have thought on first glance that Torviv had a matchup advantage, and then they lost you out.
yeah, but I think that's one of the things with Solgaleo and Cali I, right? Those teams want to do something very specific, and if it gets them off, it's very difficult to take down, right? So, I don't know, like you said, on paper, it does look like Torviv has the matchup, but maybe you're looking at something here like Scarf Groudon into Bulldoze Solgaleo. All of a sudden, you're breaking a Calyrex Sash into Solgaleo just killing Calyrex, no more Calyrex, right? So,
Right.
maybe you have Big Rock, maybe you have Max Rockfall, and you drop the Yveltal, because the Yveltal, as much as it wants to max, I feel like looking into Reiko's team, it's one of those ones where Torviv probably wants to go for that Aleki, wants to go for the, okay, probably not the Aleki, but wants to go for the Kyogre, right? Just to reset the weather, keep the weather in their favor. So, like, you're probably getting that Yveltal down with a Rockfall or a Lightning if you have something like that, and I just think there's potential for Solgaleo in this
sure.
matchup.
For sure, agreed. Agreed, very good. Any final takes on the screen?
No, I like seeing Raichu. Unfortunately, it lost, but it was cool. Definitely cool to see something I wanted to try myself at some point. But I just don't know if there's enough prominent electric types in the format for really to make it worth it, you know?
So I did Raichu testing on a rain team that I did. I ran it with a Salt Vest. It just didn't do enough. I actually, so I did two things. I tried a rain team with Raichu, and I tried a weakness policy Latios with brutal swing Raichu, and Raichu was 1 point faster, so Latios was 109 speed, and I gave Latios Energy Ball. I gave it Energy Ball so that I could hit Tapu Fini, and then I was like, oh, I'll put Rillaboom, so I hit it with Energy Ball in terrain, and then I was like, it doesn't affect the terrain because it's levitating. And then the idea kind of started falling off very quickly.
Yeah, for sure, but I think, yeah.
So that was kind of my premise. I was like, yeah, you can potentially like use Raichu, like it's super clear, and then I was like, no.
No. It's interesting, right? And I think it's weird coming from a Dynamax meta into something without Dynamax, right? Because weakness policy self-proc into your policy, right, is that's something that was very prominent in the Dynamax era, right? Because you Dynamax, you'd be able to proc policy, and you'd be able to do massive damage.
No,
right?
well, and take like 2% HP in return.
Exactly, right? And I think coming back to a format now that's a little bit more slow paced. It's really more all about getting into position, making sure you're keeping your mons in the end game, right? It's a lot harder to actually get on that offensive side of things
Yeah.
right away. That is, anyways, right? So,
Right.
and
Like you
because of
can
that,
lead with
it's
it and
tough to
start
make
picking
that
up
use.
KOs. Right.
Exactly. Like in Dynamax, you can actually take advantage. Turn one, Dynamax, just game, boom, boom, boom. You're picking up KOs. In a format like this, there's a lot more defensive switch-ins because I can actually switch something in and take an attack. Unlike where I switch my instant into a charger and I just die. You
Right.
know, like
Right. Right.
there's a little bit more defense. It's a little bit more defensive oriented of a format, which personally I enjoy a lot. I never really liked Dynamax in the first
I
place.
play better that way. Uh, I play much better without Dynamax. I think Dynamax has a higher skill ceiling. It's much harder to play, and it rewards you for being a better player. Um, until you get crit, that's a separate story. Uh,
I don't know if I agree with that because for me it's one of those ones where I think Dynamax. I think, well, yes, it has that high ceiling, right? Like if you have two really really fantastic players playing a Dynamax format, it's going to be one amazing battle. But in my opinion, you also have the opportunity to just abuse it with kind of nonsense plays and catch somebody else off guard, regardless of the skill set, right?
so
Like
that is
I could be
true.
sitting there,
That is
you know,
true. So I see it both ways. So the thing with Dynamax is I learned early on that Dynamax gives you bad habits to your point, which is like, oh, I'm just gonna stand there because I'm gonna take it. But at the same time, when you see extremely high level play, having to time your Dynamax and like stalling a Dynamax and like waiting to Dynamax on an end game just makes like being able to play at that level, it just creates something that you don't have that burst of damage and you also don't have to receive that burst of damage. So I think in a Don't Dynamax format there's a lot of plays that are it's a little bit more forgiving, if that makes sense. Like if you're playing in a Dynamax
yeah, of course.
format and you screw up turn one, like you might have lost the match. Whereas
Yeah.
like in a format like this, you maybe have a chance to like, um, you have a chance to like potentially fix that. So Borgie says if we've talked about how broken he is. Um,
We talked about how broken the Komodo team was.
we
Not
talked how broken
necessarily.
Komo is and how Borgie got carried by Komo. Yes, we did talk about that. Yes. I love you, my friend. Peace. He's one of my guys from the New Jersey team, so he knows us with love.
I've
So-
known Bogey for a while now.
Very cool, very cool. So let's talk about the last matchup, and this is your team, so I'll let you take over on this one.
Oh no. Oh no, guys, I'm gonna be honest, I have missed most of this week just from prepping for World Cup. So looking at this, I'm seeing some of these teams. Komo was not brought. Nick.
So the vision of Como struck enough fear in your opponent to where it won you the game.
No, but like, I don't know. This Lunala Dream Eaters team is honestly, I don't know. I really like the way the team has been shaping up, and I'm happy we were able to get the win. But honestly, looking at the matches here, I like seeing the Cresselia. That was a really really cool pick, I believe. The Man Was Fun is also cool on that team. Like, just really really cool team. I like seeing Clefairy, but like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. I don't know too much. Like, I'm looking at half these matchups for the first time here. I didn't even know there was a Galistopod in. Is that Neptune versus Jay Z there?
Yeah, yeah. So that is yeah, so- and that's subject speak as well. So that one, so to me that's an interesting pick, and I don't believe it's the same person, but there was somebody in Series 12. Oh, Angela says Como the champ because they've also been using it. So there was somebody in Series 12 that was running Golisopod, and they were very high in ladder, and I don't believe they top cut in Frankfurt and Bilbao, but I believe they still did pretty decent in the tournaments. Um, and their premise was that it was like tanking a +2 or +3 whatever hit from Kali I. And that was kind of the premise, and then it was actually strong against it because of the bug type, right? So that was an interesting premise. I think it's someone that does better in non-dynamic, especially to your point from before, where you're pivoting more. It's someone that you potentially want to switch in, take a hit, get it, hit that emergency exit, go out and actually switch something. That's gonna put you in a good position.
It did get top 16 at Worlds, which, in my opinion, there is a little bit, I want to say, a little bit of unfortunate circumstance in order for it to finish top 16. Could have done a little bit better, in my opinion. I think it could have gone farther. Unfortunately, there was a disconnect somehow. I don't know how that actually happened.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
Super unfortunate way to go out of the tournament. But top 16 at Worlds is definitely... It's a mon that has potential. It's just really, really difficult to use correctly.
It has a built-in eject button, right?
Yeah.
So if you position it correctly, I think you can find yourself in a bad spot and say, I'm going to switch it here so that it exits, that mon that is poorly positioned doesn't take damage, and I'm going to bring in something that's actually going to benefit me. Also with first impression, being able to walk in and just do a massive amount of damage to something with priority, always good. It's not an easy mon to KO. It's kind of slow, but it has a priority move. It's a little bit bulky, so I think there's a way to play it. I think I personally haven't figured out how to use it. Certainly an interesting beat. I mean, it got 2-0'd. So we're here like talking about how great of a mon it is, but I think it has more potential in non-dynamics, and I'm curious to see if more people are gonna bring it here.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Something else that I think is really, really cool to see on this is the Moltres Galar from Nate sent here, Mechanics, and it's just a mon you haven't seen. Like, it has been almost nowhere in this format, but I think it deserves a spot in the format. Like, it's a mon that, in theory, does really, really well. You see some of the Indeedee stuffs, it does really well in the bat. The Fiery Raptus, anytime you can potentially get a flinch off a spread move, always makes something viable, in my opinion, right? And Moltres has the typing to do it. It's got the special bulk, it's got the berserk, it's got the nasty plot. If it gets supported well enough, it can definitely go crazy in this format, and I'd like to see it get picked up in usage, especially versus the Clefairy Spectre teams that's been going around, so could be cool to see.
So I actually did some testing with Mechanics during the week. The team felt very strong. I think there were a couple of very glaring weaknesses that we found, but other than that, I think the team was very strong. I think, to your point, I felt when I did my video on the format, like the pre-meta analysis, I would have expected Moltres to be much higher in usage than it is. I almost expected it to be like top 10, to be honest. And I was a bit...
that high.
I know, but like... Here's my thing with Moltres. I think the correct set is with a Citrus Berry for this. Because you can reactivate Berserk. You run Nasty Plot with it. If you support this thing correctly, and your opponent is not spamming like Icy Winds or Electro Webs against it, I think your opponents are going to struggle to counter it. So I can see the hesitation on why you wouldn't necessarily think it would be that high, but I think it just has so much potential, and I am excited to see if people are going to be using it more.
Yep. And I wonder if it's, back to my broken record here, I wonder if it's just the case that no one really knows what to build it for yet, right? Like, I think you can look at it and say, yeah, it's probably going to have a spot here, but what exactly do I need to do with it? And I think if someone can figure that out, it'll start sparking in usage.
So another cool thing here on this one, fun fact, your Ecuadorian teammates, both playing same teams with a Gengar. One of them playing against Battle Room's team, the other one playing pretty much the Dragonite team, but with a Dragapult.
Pretty similar.
So I believe I didn't watch Ecuador's game, or I think I watched it, but I didn't like fully focus on it. I believe they mentioned that they felt like they misplayed on game two, and then on game three the opponent like Dini. I mean Dini has been playing great. The past 2 weeks they're 2-0. Um, so they basically like picked up on the strategy and basically like just ran with game
Yeah.
three, right? Um,
Yep.
then on Mr. Pinkman's game, going back to the battle room team, there were two of these on the opposing side. Playing with that Gengar, was that an imprisoned Gengar? Is that what that was?
I'm not sure. I honestly don't know.
That's all right. I know you've been busy with the
Yeah.
with the World Cup. My last couple of comments here is Adi's team CK49 out of left field. Very. I feel like I've seen similar things in ladder. I think I understand it. I understand what it
Yeah.
does. I don't
Yeah,
know that I'm
so-
gonna be playing it in the ladder, but I mean they 2-0. There's some merit to it.
For me, it's one of those ones where I've been saying that Series 13 allows underused restricteds to shine because you're not restricted to only two slots. And I think Addy basically looked at that and said, kind of
Yo.
the same thing, and just
Yo.
took it to another level.
YOLO.
You know? And he's just like, Ho Zamazenta, no one's gonna have answers to this, and I'm not wasting restricted slots with Ho Zamazenta because I can still run my Groudons, I can still run my Zekrom because he obviously had a very bad Kyogre matchup. Just now Zekrom's in there, you patch that, and I know it looks really weird, but I do think it's pretty well built.
No, agreed. I think I see the merit to the team. Like it's obviously like it looks weird because like what the heck is this? But then like if you actually see it, the team is well built. Like he's definitely not like memeing. Like the team actually can function if you use it correctly, right?
Sure.
A lot of Seijin are bulky and depending on how you train the Samacenta might be faster than Seijin too, right? So
Yeah.
you get a coaching off, you Dynamax Ho, and then all of a sudden, like, how do you take it out?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that can consistently take it out on the other team is Kyogre.
Can it be consistent beside a Moongaze and a Groudon to reset weather and just to repivot?
And
then
the
you have
Zekrom.
And then you have the Zekrom to finish it off, right? Like,
Right.
that's not even a consistent answer to it anymore. I just think it's a really well-built, unique team.
Agreed. Fully agree. I think it's a good team. On Joe's match, I remember watching it. I believe game one, Joe made a couple of very key specific plays and was able to turn the game around. And then on game two, I think Joe probably called the lead and then just picked up and it steamrolled from there and then was able to 2-0.
Yep.
On the other matches here, I mean, I'm looking at Javier's match. I'm a really big fan of the Registeel. I did some testing with it. I haven't been able to figure out how to best play it, but I just see a humongous potential in this thing.
Yeah.
You get set up and then how you kill it. So
Exactly, and this is what I was saying earlier when we were talking about Komodo, right? It's a similar concept, right? You get this thing set up, you get rid of something that can the answers to it, and next thing you know, you're just winning, right? Like in this matchup here, like you get this Registeel set up and you get rid of the Heatran. Have fun killing it.
right. Well, one of the interesting things about this specific one that is different to the other body press users, and different to Celesteela as well, that is a heavy slam user as opposed to body press, is that this thing wants body press and it wants heavy slam and it wants iron defense and it wants sub and it wants amnesia. Like there's like 6 moves that it wants to use, and I think you have to decide what your team needs and how to run it. I can see you using heavy slam and body press and iron defense protect. I can see you not using heavy slam and using sub. I can see you just using amnesia and iron defense as well. So I think there's a couple of different ways to play it, and Coolmon, and I'm putting it together with Suicune. How do you kill both? You kill one, but how do you kill both, right?
It's tough, right? And that's kind of the way the format's going right now. It's you need to make sure you have answers to things, but you also need to make sure you have answers to the pairings of those things. Like, hey, you have a Heatran beats Registeel, right? But if you look at Javier's team, there's ways to deal with the Heatran, right? And obviously that's just, in theory, that's just general Pokemon. But I think you're seeing that more so in this format with these endgame setup mons, like the Kamo, like the Registeel, like the underused Turtonator, in my opinion. But
And I mean, and I would say Heatran was certainly the key to victory on this match. Suicune doesn't hit that hard. You have a Rillaboom. Like, you definitely want to play to the Heatran Registeel endgame. But I mean, if it has Body Press, then you don't one-shot it and then...
It's going to have the support with the Clefairy as well, right? So you have Friend Guard beside this Registeel. But I don't think that's the way you really want to clean that up. I think what you want to do is just put on so much pressure with the Clefairy and the Dragapult early. And you put on that pressure, right? Because Dragapult Clefairy forces opponents to either lead correctly or they're taking massive damage. Now, the moment they slip on lead, you can sweep, you can force them to lose that Heatran because they need to preserve something else. Next thing you know, Heatran's gone and you win, right? And I think that's the oppressiveness of Clefairy Dragapult aiding in setting up that endgame for the Registeel. And I really think it's a cool team.
Yeah, for sure. So talking about the body procedure, so Borgie's talking about using Turtonator. So there was a team in one of the previous matches that had it as well. And we talked a little bit about how it was an interesting pick too. So I know in other metas it's even run Rocky Helmet. So I think there's an opportunity for leftovers, there's an opportunity for Rocky Helmet with it. So I don't know.
Leftovers is the way to go personally because
I
you
agree.
want to be there. You want to be on the field as long as you can with the shirt.
Yeah, I agree.
In my opinion.
The one caveat to that is that Among Us in this kinds of format is running Pollen Puff. So that's the one thing where I can see people going like, this thing doesn't have that many weaknesses, and to your point from way earlier, like I can deal with ground types. So if I can just stand it, set up next to Among Us and heal it, that's an interesting one. So he's actually also talking about Double. I've actually done this to troll in ladder before because it learns Cotton Guard instead of Iron Defense. So you just need 2 turns to set up instead of 3 turns to set up. And it actually has Fluffy as an ability, so it takes less damage. So as long as you don't take a fire move, you're flying. So
yeah,
I don't think Double is going to truly work in the format because there is a bear called Urshifu, and there are fire types.
I don't know how much does, but hold on, I hate to cut you off, but how much does close combat really do if you have?
Well, if you're at +6, not a lot, right?
Right, exactly. So you get set up beforehand, right? Like, yeah, Urshifu counters it on paper, but you can work around that, right? It's the same concept. You deal with Urshifu, Double probably just wins.
Yeah, but so you say that, and then I hit you with a Heat Wave, and then I one-shot you. Because
what's running Heat Wave right now, though?
So Torkoal, for example, Double is faster than Urshifu. I did not realize that. Interesting. Why were you judging me in prep? I do not know this backstory. I do not want to be involved. Well, so I mean, you have a couple of things here, right? So there aren't like 20 different fire types, and a lot of them are physical. So you have Entei, Incineroar, right? So here, I mean, let's go to slide 1, right, and talk about that.
Yeah.
So I guess there's 2 in the top 20. Well, 3. Torkoal's the only special one, so maybe it's not that crazy.
Technically.
Well, Heatran as well. So Heatran is your counter to it until it's slower than it, and then it gets body pressed. So
exactly. So I think it actually has
there's merit to it.
I have to agree with Nick on this one.
Yeah, there's merit to it. I tested. Might troll some people on ladder with it. So any final takes on this one?
No, just really good week, I think. I mean, like I said, I didn't see much of it, so I can't really comment fully on it, but definitely a good week. Happy our team was able to pull it out.
Okay, very cool. So our last segment of today, and hopefully we can do this pretty quick. Let's do this kind of like a fire drill. So I want prediction for the match to watch. So let's go, I guess, with your team. I'm assuming what you're going to predict on this one.
I'm going to refrain from predicting my team because I'm one of those guys that refuses to bet against my team. I am sticking with my team, and if I was going to make a prediction, it would just be a sweep down the Dream Eater's side. I'm not going to make too many predictions. Match to watch. Something I want to see is Mechanics versus Z. That is
great backstory for those who don't know the backstory.
Great backstory. That is,
great
I believe,
backstory.
A 2018 regional top 8 rematch from way back in the day. So I'm definitely interested to see what they bring this time, and I know they're close friends as well. So definitely a match you guys are gonna want to watch. Definitely one I'm looking for.
So apparently they played. Was it top 8 in 2015?
It was top 2018, but top 8.
2018 top 8. Yeah. So they've known each other for a while. They're good friends. So it's a really good match to watch. There's a couple of really good matches here. The match that I actually want to watch is Fiona's match with Javier's match. I know the other one has the backstory. This match is gonna get recorded. Fiona's been prepping, obviously. She's been playing in the World Cup and has been doing all these things. I think she's playing for Poland this time, if I'm not mistaken. So she's been playing, Series 12 a lot. Fiona spends a lot of time prepping. If you guys have never actually seen her play, she's a really good player. And then Javier is also a very, very strong player from Latin America. This match is gonna get recorded. Don't miss it on YouTube. I think it's gonna be a very strong match.
I mean, a lot of these matches are good too. Like you got Tabu versus Suwong here, also gonna be a phenomenal match. That's just two high-level players going at it, right?
Sure.
A lot of these matchups are really, really strong.
For sure. I mean, Seba's match is going to be really strong too. So, I mean, Tabu's here. I mean, this is...
You can probably say that about almost every match. There's so many good players in this league that every match is pretty much going to be a show. Every match is going to be pretty well played.
For sure. Very cool, very cool. So, striker seats. Well, what's your pick here?
Let me quickly get a glance here. I like strikers here. I think they're gonna go with a 3-0.
I agree. I think my match to watch here is I'm torn between Ray's match and Jonas and Polar Bear. Jonas and Polar Bear, good friends of mine. I'm very much looking forward to those. Ray is a very good player. I think a lot of people don't know them, but Ray's a very, very strong player. So I think those would be my 2 matches to watch on this one, I think.
Yeah. I would bite the bullet and say Ray Kiriakou is probably my match as well. It's just one of the things where Ray, I think I've played Ray a fair amount, and in my opinion, they know the game, they know win cons, and I think knowing that and having the knowledge that Ray does in these types of formats is super helpful. I think Ray is one of those players that's going to accelerate in a non-Dynamax format more so than they have in the Dynamax format, but definitely a really good player there.
So we did a pre-World Series 12 tour in the server, and I think Ray top 4 actually. So
yeah, Ray is a very solid player along with Kiriakou as well. They've been around for a while.
What about this one? Who's your pick on this one?
Oh, this is tough. Because part of me wants to lean towards the Celtics, right? But because they have an all-star roster. You look at that, that's an all-star roster. But I'm gonna say the Thunders win this one too, and unfortunately sending the Celtics to 0-3. This is my prediction here.
I'm gonna give you my match to watch. Tehran versus Massa. That's gonna be a very good game to watch. Very good game to watch.
I'll buy on that. I think I agree with that. I think Syntax versus Dark George is another good one that you're definitely gonna want to look out for because Syntax is known for those. Is known for the pick. Is known for a unique pick, but also a very solid player. And then you have Dark George, who's also. I played week 1, and once again, just two solid players going at it, and I think Syntax with potential to make, I don't know, some spice, I guess if you want to use that wording, on stream is definitely going to make it definitely a match to watch as well.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, let's go to the final matchup here. Colossals and Cobbers. Who's your pick here?
Let me take a quick look. That is tough. I want to say the Colossals finally snag a W, but both teams need a W here, basically. I think I'm going to go with the Colossals are going to take the win, and my match to watch is going to be Inc. versus Neptune.
So there's three matches here that really caught my attention. So Inc. Neptune is one, Zelda Torviv, and Joe Teka.
Yeah.
So
I'll agree with all those three.
So those are all very good matches. So Ink's game is going to be on stream on Sunday. So I believe this might be the last week that we're doing the late matches for stream, and then we might go back. So once the World Cup's over, we're going to start streaming a little bit earlier so the Europe people can watch them.
Makes sense.
So this is one that I'm very, very much looking forward to and watching it in stream. So it's going to be definitely a really cool one. Yeah, I think I'm also inclined to think the Colossals, the Cobras have a strong team. I think this is the week where the Colossals take a win, though. I do. I think this is one where...
Yeah.
I mean, I look at both rosters, and both are good rosters. I think this has been, and I don't know if this has been a function of the format. I don't know if this has been a function of the great job that the commissioners have done at organizing the league and bringing people in. I don't know if it's the prize pool. I personally don't think it's the prize pool because you're not going to get that money as an individual, or at least that much as an individual. So I think that it's a combination of like people wanted to play the different format and I think we have some really good managers and the commissioners have done a really good job at advertising the league. But every time I look at the teams, I feel like they're all all-star teams.
Agreed. I am inclined to agree. There's a lot of teams, and I'm like, and I'm going to compare to NPA here, just because, like, that's pretty much one of the more prestigious tournaments in the community, right? Or historically one of the more prestigious ones. And I look at these rosters, and I'm like, if you told me this was an NPA roster, I'd probably believe you.
Yeah.
You know, like, some of these rosters are just that good, and most of them have that caliber of player, you know? Like, the caliber of players in this league, as I was saying earlier, back when we were talking about the Dream Years match, it's, the caliber of players has just been insane. Like, I haven't seen a team league with this level of players since probably NPA.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. No, man, this is I am very excited to continue to watch this. We're going to have a stream on Sunday, 5 p.m. Central, 6 Eastern Time. What we're going to be doing is we're going to do the stream, and then again on Monday, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, we are going to be doing this again. Probably after week 4, I'm going to do another like meta-analysis, and I'm going to bring in kind of my, like, some general notes from my first video, and then compare my video to like each week how the meta has progressed, and then just kind of do like a checkpoint, and just talk a little bit about like how that's going. Maybe it might be after next week, or it'll be either next week or after week 4. Week 4 might be nice because it's going to be maybe closer to playoffs, and a month is good time to let the format settle. So this is all very, very, very good stuff. I'm very much looking forward to continuing to watch what's going on here in the league. Not sure, Ryan, what other final takes you have.
No, I'm honestly looking forward to just seeing no Dynamax Pokemon, For me, I never liked Dynamax, so playing it again without Dynamax just playing the game. It's to me, this is how the game is meant to be played, right? So
Agreed.
like when I play Pokemon, I play this game like I play very very feel based, and it just feels so much better to play the game without Dynamax, and that's just the way I like it. But it just it's just nice to see again. You know, it's just very refreshing.
Very cool, very cool. Great takes here. So, I think this is going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching. We're, again, going to do this every week. Feel free to blast away in chat if there's anything that you feel that we missed. Any comments that you got. This video is going to be on YouTube, so hit me up on Twitter. Hit Ryan on Twitter. Sure to follow him. He took an hour and a half out of his Canada World Cup prep to come hang out with you guys, so make sure you guys give him a follow for that one. What are your stream times again, Ryan?
Oh, my schedule's all over the place, but generally Tuesday and Thursday nights. But more
Right.
importantly, thank you for inviting me on, guys. I was very happy to come on to one of these. I've never actually done one, so I was happy to be here and
For
be
sure.
part of this group. Thank
No,
you.
man. Great takes, great commenting, man. You should be a caster.
No, see, people say this, and then I'm just like, no, I don't think I could be a caster.
Nah, no, man. You'd be a great caster, and I mean that. I mean, you know a lot about the game, and like if you've ever watched Ryan playing, like especially on stream where he's like sitting down and explaining his reasoning, like he actually thinks about it in the correct way. He's like, okay, this is what I need to do, and like how can my opponent break this? And he'll like break it up, and you can see his thought process. And I just feel like translating that to casting, I think you actually have great potential to be a really good caster. I truly mean that.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. But the thing is, you say that, and then I do dumb things on stream, like click Psychic into a Dark-type Urshifu because I wasn't paying attention, and I thought it was the Water Urshifu, you know? Like, I do things like that, so I don't know.
I do the same thing, man. I do the same thing. Well, what we are going to do now with the few people we have left, we are going to raid Squirtle's Den. I don't think there's a whole lot of VGC content. I think he's playing Unite. We're going to be raiding Squirtle. So again, thank you so much for being here today. And you guys know where to find us. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit Ryan on Twitter. And if you guys need anything, just hit me up. And this will be in YouTube here in a couple of days. Thank you.